Hi, my name is Meg. I'm a member of the New Orleans Workers Group and the New Orleans Hospitality Workers Alliance. A month ago in our newspaper, The Workers' Voice, we put forth demands calling for emergency measures in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our demands highlighted things like paid leave, access to healthcare, and housing, among others. A week later, the New Orleans Hospitality Workers Alliance crashed the mayor's press conference calling for these demands to be implemented. On that same day, the first case of coronavirus appeared in Louisiana. Since then, demands like ours have been raised by workers across the country. Many people are under extreme pressure to work despite shutdown orders, either because of their financial situation or pressure from their employers. 30% of white workers can work from home, but only 15% of Latinx workers and 20% of Black workers. Chances of death are higher under oppressive material, working, and living conditions, and the stress that comes with them. Race and class play a huge role in those and who is most affected by COVID-19. This is why Black people in Louisiana make up 70% of all COVID deaths. These deaths are on the white supremacist capitalist system. Louisiana now has one of the fastest growth rates of spread in the world, yet the mass majority still cannot access testing, including frontline workers. Until there's widely accessible testing for all, we cannot contain the spread or even measure the extent of it. We've noticed how the rich like Trump and others continue to get tested with no trouble at all. As of March, 10 million people filed for unemployment, and we workers who live paycheck to paycheck are left waiting weeks, even months, for small amounts of government aid to come through, and many are being excluded from even this. The stimulus package put forth by both Democrats and Republicans is throwing pennies to only a portion of the working class, while giving trillions to the banks and bailing out corporations. They are giving $8 trillion a week to the banks from the Federal Reserve. Remember, this money belongs to us. They are hoarding our resources and deciding who gets to live and who gets to die. Nurses aren't being given proper protective gear and equipment they need. Workers at non-essential establishments continue to get called into work due to only partial closures. Grocery store workers are not being given proper protective gear, and some are even being told to take off their masks. Workers are testing positive, and coworkers who have been exposed to them are getting called into work instead of being allowed to properly self-quarantine with pay. This is unacceptable. Bosses are lobbying to stay open during this crisis. Trump is talking about getting people back to work to restart the economy in the middle of a pandemic. We know if our jobs are not essential, they should not be open. We must say no. We will not die to save capitalism. Workers are leading the way to demand protection and safety for ourselves, our families, and the public. Amazon workers across the globe are protesting unsafe working conditions in the face of COVID-19. Instacart workers who are deemed independent contractors went on strike last week demanding protective gear and hazard pay. Nurses with the National Nurses United Union are staging socially distanced protests in 19 different hospitals. General Electric workers held protests amid layoffs to demand they be able to produce ventilators for the crisis instead of producing jet engines for the US military. They've won and will be making 500,000 ventilators over the next 100 days to fulfill this desperate need. The workers have the solutions, and those on the front lines are fighting back for all of us. There are instances of workers' struggles in response to this pandemic popping up across the country and around the globe, in union and non-unionized workplaces. Essential workers have leverage right now. We're in contact with and are encouraging essential workers to organize in their workplaces. We are raising the possibility of a coordinated day of action for workers to make demands around our immediate needs. If you are an essential worker interested in organizing, please reach out to us. We are here in full solidarity with you. For those not working, the best way to support essential workers is by staying home and doing what we can to slow the spread. It is limited, but we can still organize and support while respecting social distancing. The New Orleans Hospitality Workers Alliance, with supporting organizations, has been pushing our demands via the letter to the governor, mayor, and city council as hard as we can, and some have been met. like the end to evictions and a partial expansion of unemployment. We are still pushing for hazard pay and protective gear for essential workers, the release of incarcerated and detained people, and a freeze on rent and mortgage payments, to name a few. We are reaching out to other workers and organizations to build up a united front. We must organize as workers to fight together, to uplift the living and working conditions of the working class as a whole. We know it's difficult because we cannot be out in the streets right now, but we must do what we can to keep the pressure on, with the understanding that once this pandemic is over, we must take to the streets.